the red center of Australia. Life is hard in this sunburnt country. It's a challenge just to survive. Long droughts, bushfires, and fierce heat all combine to create the burning heart of this vast land. In the last 100 years, the wind of change has swept through Central Australia. Desert animals like this marla provided food for nomadic groups of Aboriginal people. Intimate knowledge of the desert and its inhabitants was essential for their survival. So important was this knowledge that it became sacred and often secret. The animals were more than nourishment for the body. They were also a link to the dream time, the creation. Their epic journeys were celebrated in dream tales or song lines. A spiritual route map for the trackless desert. The dream trail of the marla radiated like a web across the arid regions, transcending tribes and language barriers, weaving through sand dunes and salt pans and across endless sun-baked spinifex grasslands. Little wonder that the great monolith of Uluru, known to Europeans as Ayers Rock, inspired distant generations of Aborigines. The most sacred and secret place of the Marla Dream Trail is a cave like this, the cave of the Marla's Pouch. But the ancient dreams are fading in the harsh light of a new era. As the extent of the dream trail suggests, the marla was one of the commonest animals of Australia's vast dry interior. It can manage without water, and its digestion can cope with a diet of spinifex grass. A less nourishing food would be hard to imagine. The marla has all the attributes of a real desert survivor. Like other marsupials, the marla hops on leathery pads. Now they have been replaced by horny hooves, which cut into the delicate soil surface. The marla's world has changed. History has shown that this harsh environment is surprisingly fragile. The Aborigines drifted like shadows across the landscape, taking a little and moving on. Western culture demanded more. We wanted to settle, stay in one place, and alter the world to suit our needs. At first sight, spinifex looks pretty harmless, but the leaves are like needles. Many species are also packed full of silica, microscopic shards of glass. Not good for cattle or sheep. The roots probe 3 meters down to collect what little water is available. As the tussocks grow, they die in the center, forming rings which get bigger with successive years. Nearly a quarter of Australia is covered by inhospitable spinifex grassland, but nevertheless it supports a rich community of animals. Spinifex pigeons eke out a living by picking up seeds. But here reptiles predominate, ranging from the parenti, the second largest lizard in the world, to dozens of smaller species. Some types of spinifex secrete a sticky resin to deter potential grazers. Spinifex ants have exploited this in an extraordinary way. The ants actually harvest the resin from the base of the spinifex leaves and use it as cement to build little tubes of sand about the size of a drinking straw around individual blades of grass. The Aborigines use both the tubes and the ants' underground nests to make a very strong adhesive. Inside the tubes, sheltered from the sun and drying wind, the ants farm lerps. These tiny sap-sucking bugs are packed head to tail along the leaf. The plant's juices are sucked in at one end, and a sticky, sweet honeydew is excreted from the other. And it's this which sustains the spinifex ants. Very few animals can feed directly on spinifex, but for those that do, it's a world of plenty. One group, the termites, have cracked the system. The key to their success lies in their guts, for they harbor single-celled animals which can break down cellulose, the woody content in spinifex, and turn it into digestible sugars. Harvesting the raw material takes place at night. Termites are really grazers, just like other, much larger herbivores. They are eaten by smaller reptiles and a host of other animals. In the good years, spinifex produces large quantities of seed, which allows the native rodents to breed rapidly. Spinifex hopping mice are quick to exploit the situation, and their populations rapidly build up. In times like this, the woma, or olive python, has no difficulty in finding food. But catching it is another matter. Rodents colonized Australia via New Guinea 5 million years ago, and they have evolved here with unusual diversity. Early travelers were intrigued when they found large heaps of little stones in the middle of nowhere. They discovered that these mounds of pebbles were the work of industrious little mice. The pebble mound mice are only found in areas where there's not enough soil to dig a nice cool burrow to escape the heat. So they build mounds of pebbles as shelter instead. Moving the stones about means the mice expend considerable energy. Every so often they break off to feed. Each fortress of stones shelters a whole colony of mice, and it helps to protect them from all but the most determined predator. A big parenti is a formidable creature, armed with powerful claws for digging and a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth. The flicking tongue can detect a hint of mouse in the air. In these hot conditions, cold-blooded reptiles manage very well. In the heat of the day, a termite mound makes a convenient lookout post for a bearded dragon. With over 50 species of termites living in the red center, the echidna, or spiny anteater, is spoilt for choice. The echidna can easily break through the termite's defenses using its strong front claws. Its long tongue must be one of the miracles of the natural world. It's coated with very sticky saliva and can probe every nook and cranny. The termites sound the alarm. The echidna's excavations have left the termites vulnerable. The workers waste no time in trying to contain the damage by building up their tunnels again. They must hurry, for ants are on the warpath. The soldier termites put up a spirited defense, using their sharp jaws, and also squirting the ants with a chemical secretion. The ants arrive in ever-increasing numbers and attack the defenseless workers, overpowering them and eventually killing them with formic acid. Although the defeat seems total, it will have little impact on a termite colony tens of thousands strong. The ants work fast, killing as many termites as possible. The dead are dragged off and stacked in the shade to keep them fresh. In the aftermath of the battle, they'll be transported back to the ants' nest chamber. Spinifex manages to grow on the poorest soil, but where it's slightly richer, scrubby woodlands develop. These are dominated by hardy trees of the acacia family. The same family of trees is found on the savannas of Africa, though there they are armed with sharp thorns. In Australia, evolution has taken a different turn. The acacias protect themselves against herbivores by having foliage containing chemicals which are difficult to digest. Mulga is the commonest tree in this woodland, but in spite of its defenses, it's still prone to attack by various bugs, It has developed an alliance with ants. They like nectar, but because of the uncertain climate, flowering can be infrequent. So the mulga produces a year-round supply of nectar from little glands on the twigs, a reward for the ants' pest control efforts. The ants are faced with a problem: how to store this sweet, sticky substance. The answer lies deep underground, on the roof of the nest chamber. The nectar is carefully given to another worker, and with each successive load, it starts to swell. Its abdomen gradually gets bigger and bigger. Soon it becomes too fat to move, a living honeypot clinging to the ceiling. The engorged honeypot ants are called repletes. They hang around for months in suspended animation, transforming the nest chamber into an Aladdin's cave of sweetness. Eventually, they will regurgitate the nectar for other workers to feed the developing larvae. But the tranquility of the scene may be broken by an aboriginal digging stick searching for these natural delicacies. For those who know where to look, the mulga is full of other treasures too. There can be few more curious sights in the mulga scrub of Central Australia than this western bowerbird. He has spent much of the year building his bower of vertical twigs, cemented into place with saliva. To make it even more impressive, he has collected ornaments and little white bones, which he places at the entrance to his bower. This performance is designed to attract a mate, or if possible, a succession of mates. This female is hard to please. Very few displays end in copulation. Compared to the spinifex, the mulga is a rich habitat. Just as termites dominate the spinifex, so ants dominate the mulga. One of the most aggressive species is the meat ant. It's aptly named, and scouts are quick to discover any corpse. They relay chemical messages back to other members of the colony. Hordes of workers quickly converge and get to work. Their powerful jaws can even cut through the delicate bones of small animals. Within an hour or so, this crimson chat will be completely dismembered, and little joints of meat will be carried back to the ant's nest to feed the larvae. Soon the patrols will find another victim, and the grisly process will begin again. Armed with such strong jaws, meat ants have few enemies. Other species of ants are not so lucky. The thorny devil's spines give this bizarre lizard some protection against predators, particularly snakes. It feeds only on tiny sugar ants, and once it has found a trail, it can devour up to 3,000 at a sitting. Each species of ant here has a characteristic entrance to its nest. Mulga ants expend a huge amount of energy building elaborate vase-shaped structures. But for what purpose? It has been said of rain here that its only predictable feature is unpredictability. Long years of crippling droughts are interspersed with a few wetter ones. Desert life is dependent on the rain, but it also brings problems. Because much of the land is very flat, it floods quickly. The mulga ant's elaborate nest entrance, reinforced with dead leaves, stands up well to the weather. For a few hours, dusty creek beds become torrents, and the parched landscape is rapidly transformed. The mulga ants have made their preparations thoroughly. This is their flood defense, to keep the chambers dry. As the rain soaks into the rotting wood, it displaces termites. After spending long, dry months underground, a desert frog emerges hungry. Its appetite for termites is insatiable. Many reptiles can survive long periods without access to water, but they drink when the opportunity arises. Everything about the thorny devil is peculiar, and getting a drink is no exception. All it has to do is sit in a puddle and let the surface of its skin do the work. Moisture is drawn by capillary action along grooves between its prickles and scales, and then channeled into its mouth. For a few hours after the storm, water cascades off the ranges. Then all too quickly, the desert starts to dry up again. As the sand dries out, bilbies emerge from their burrow into a world of promise, their ears alert to danger. Their hearing is so acute that they can detect even the quiet rustling of termites in their underground galleries. That sensitive nose can pick up the subtle aroma of underground fungi as well as any truffle hound. Bilbies used to be very numerous. Aboriginal people caught them in their burrows because they were good bush tucker. The tails were also used as Bilbies are prodigious diggers and get respite from the daytime heat underground, like other desert inhabitants. This is no place for arachnophobes. After rain, the female barking spider takes advantage of the damp soil to excavate her burrow. She stabilizes the entrance with strands of silk. Meanwhile, the male is preparing for courtship in an unusual way. First, he deposits a tiny drop of sperm on a specially made web, which he moves to his front palps next to his poison fangs. Then he sucks up the sperm into the palps, rather like loading a water pistol. Thus armed, he is ready to approach the female. Courtship is a risky business. He could easily end up as a meal. Finally, she allows him to insert his palps and deliver the sperm into her genital opening. Then, with luck, he will make good his escape and perhaps mate with another female. But even for giant spiders, life in the desert is unpredictable. The mulgara gets a bite on the nose, a price worth paying for a juicy meal. During the Australian winter, temperatures can drop to freezing after dark. But as the nights get warmer, hunters of all shapes and sizes become more active. A scorpion's venom paralyzes its victim within seconds. Using its massive pincers, it delicately manipulates its prey so the much smaller jaws can get to work. A clutch of pygmy goannas struggle out to start a new life in the desert spring. If the rain has been prolonged, seeds of the ephemeral plants germinate, and in a couple of weeks they transform the desert landscape. These everlastings mostly belong to the daisy family. The papery petals are an adaptation to desert life. Good timing is another, picking the time when the desert conditions are most benign. With this sudden glut, insects flourish, in turn providing enough food for the smaller predatory marsupials to start their breeding. Because of the fickle climate, desert plants tend to produce large quantities of seed. It may lie dormant for years, waiting for the right conditions for germination. Year by year, burnable material accumulates, just waiting for a flash of lightning, an aboriginal fire stick, or even a match. For 20,000 years, Aboriginal people used fire for hunting, to drive animals out of cover. Countless fires have had a profound effect on the vegetation. Plants like spinifex thrive on it, while other, more sensitive species die out. The fire front moves rapidly. Though some animals may be caught in the flames, many have their own special ways of avoiding the inferno. In spite of the intense heat, there are survivors. Aboriginal people used the fire stick to change the environment, almost farming with fire. The native wildlife has had tens of thousands of years to adjust to this regime. But today, the animals of the burning heart face a new threat, and now time is not on their side. The early pioneers brought camels to the red centre of Australia. They were used by the explorer Stuart when he trekked northwards through the sand dunes in 1862, becoming the first to actually cross the continent. Thirst claimed the lives of many of the early travellers to the interior of Australia. With the advent of motor vehicles in the 1920s, the camels became redundant, and many were turned loose. They bred rapidly, and today there are more camels here than on the Arabian Peninsula. The first camels carried seeds on their coats from India. Camel docks have joined the long list of alien plants that have colonized the center. Camels, sheep and rabbits have had a major impact on the vegetation, eating out the more palatable plants and putting pressure on the native animals. Now there are only a few places left where the vegetation is unaltered, out of reach. Running through the plains are the ranges, the skeletal remains of a mountain chain that was once as big as the Rockies. This rugged terrain still holds surprises, for both animals and plants have found refuge here. Families of rock wallabies cling onto the walls of cliffs and canyons. water seeps down through the rock and in a few places collects in hollows. In times past, these precious pools of water could mean the difference between life and death. A supply of permanent water allows plant and animal life to flourish. There are echoes here of an ancient past, when the climate of the center was much wetter and tropical rainforests flourished. There are cycads, primitive plants dating from before the age of the dinosaurs. And groves of tall cabbage palms. Euros relish the succulent leaves and fruit of figs, which also managed to survive here in the damper conditions. Oblivious to climatic changes, at least 20 species of land snails, survivors of the rainforest, munch on into obscurity. Rock wallabies have few natural predators, apart from wedge-tailed eagles and large carpet pythons. A big snake might catch 3 or 4 rock wallabies a year, not enough to harm the colony. During their evolution, many marsupials, like wallabies, opted to nurture just one offspring in a pouch, a sensible strategy in a land where famine and drought were the biggest killers. Predation did not exert a significant influence, but the arrival of foxes, introduced from Europe, had a devastating effect. In the desert, the problem was compounded by an even greater menace. Cats may have reached Australia from shipwrecks as early as the 1600s. Their wild ancestors roamed the deserts of North Africa. Now cats are equally at home here. They can get by on very little water and will kill anything from small lizards and insects to animals their own size. Their effect on the native animals of the arid interior has been disastrous. While foxes can be controlled by poison baiting, cats are fussy feeders and pose a much more difficult problem to eliminate. Scientists in Western Australia have developed the best method so far. They use electronic squeakers to attract cats to the traps, but it's a laborious and expensive process. It's all part of the most ambitious reintroduction scheme yet undertaken. On the west coast of Australia, the vast Perron Peninsula has been fenced off and completely cleared of all domestic stock and foxes. Rare marsupials are being bred up, ready for reintroduction. But success or failure of this experiment will depend on completely removing the cats. One part of the scheme has already been a great success. Salutation Island lies off the coast of the Peron Peninsula. It's now dotted with strange heaps of sticks, the nests of an unusual rodent. These stick nest rats originally came from another predator-free island where they still survive. Each family builds a communal nest of sticks which it defends against intruders. Although the remains of these nests can still be found in the Central Australian ranges, the rats which built them haven't been seen there for over 50 years. Islands around the coast of Australia play a key role in the future of endangered native animals. In recent geological history, sea levels have risen by several hundred meters. Desert animals have become marooned, and in the absence of cats and foxes, they've continued to thrive. Here on Barrow Island, 600 kilometers north of the Peron Peninsula, the wildlife is confronted with a different aspect of modern life. Barrow Island lies above massive oil reserves, but thanks to a sympathetic policy, native wildlife and the oilmen are able to live side by side. Huge parentes patrol the dirt roads which crisscross the island, looking for the occasional casualty. The lizard wipes the carcass on the road, brushing its fur down to make swallowing easier. The evening brings some respite from the heat, and while the oilmen relax, ghosts from a not-so-distant past emerge. The spectacled hare wallaby, a relative of the marla, thrives here on Barrow Island. On the mainland, its population is dwindling. A golden bandicoot boldly steals food from a booty. Perhaps it's not so surprising cats and foxes have destroyed the entire population of booties on the mainland. They're not adapted to cope with modern predators. But even native animals have been quick to recognize new sources of food. Golden bandicoots catch insects attracted to the lights of the sleeping quarters. On Barrow Island, these rare marsupials are safe from the fate which has befallen so many species on the mainland. Despite the disastrous effects of introduced predators, some do still manage to survive in the red center. The Tanami Desert is spinifex country, and native animals have managed to survive here longest, protected from the intrusion of European stock by the spinifex's needle-point spines. The bilby is now a rare animal, but it still hangs on here in the desert. Two males spar for access to a receptive female. A youngster from this union will face an uncertain future in this inhospitable landscape. But what of the marla? This once common animal declined until only 2 small populations remained in the Tanami. Then disaster struck. In 1987, a single fox wiped out one colony completely. 4 years later, a massive bushfire raged through the other. If it had not been for animals in captivity, the marla dreaming might have faded to a distant memory. With the help of the local Walpiri Aboriginal people, the marla was reintroduced to the Tanami, but cats have thwarted all attempts to re-establish them in the wild. The marlas here are still vulnerable, so for their own safety they must remain in an enclosure. But fences can be broken by wandering camels, putting the marlas at risk from cats and foxes which still prowl on the outside. With a lot of help, the marla lives on. The tenuous link to the Dreamtime still holds. But now the marla has joined 8 other species which have vanished from Australia's burning heart, though they still survive in odd corners, on islands, and in captivity. Perhaps in the distant future they can be returned. For 9 more species, it's already too late. They have gone forever. Their dreams have faded. No trace remains.